So smile, you're now on camera. So that's way exciting. Ricky and Scott Ross Kelly and I have worked together. I don't even know how many hours to put this together. We've attended national webinars. We've talked with other states to see what they've done. We've looked at different tools and resources and have created one for Utah that I think will really work. So I'm really excited about the process. It will really look at building capacity in three-dimensional instruction, as well as now how do we assess that to see where students are, what is student understanding, and what does that mean for instruction then? There are stipends for leaders and for the team members, and secondaries had to kind of scramble to fill their team. In elementary, I had about 24 slots, 24 people that applied for every one of the teams, and the teams had between 6 to 8 or 9. So I had a huge amount of elementary applicants. So thank you for getting the word out, and that's exciting. I mean, that's great that in K through 6, we're so excited about this, because I think it's going to be a really wonderful project. So starts May 4th and 5th for leaders, and then the writing teams will be there June 7th through the 11th. Okay, for other projects, OER textbooks this year we did not do because USBE said they did not want any teachers taken out of their classrooms for the year. So if you're thinking about ordering OER textbooks, go ahead and do them. They'll be the same as last year. However, as I just talked to my supervisor last night and this morning about budget, and we're looking at making sure that there's a revision next year so that we can make those changes, especially on our new books in K-5 that have only been out for 1 year, to really up them and make sure that they have good information and are error-free. We'll also do a revision of the core guides because there are a few issues, and we'll add the formative assessments that we're building to the core guides. So that will be a big bonus. We're looking at seeing if maybe we can get some more funds to look at what happens with these assessments. Are there revisions we need to make? Are there more that we need to make? So we're looking at maybe a round 2 of this for a year away. The other 2 that we talked about is implementing doing and talking science and engineering. Last year, there was a huge response to that, way more than I anticipated. So I'd like to try to run that, because it really looks at this idea of equity and how do we support language and content learning at the same time. And then the STEM Institute, again, there was a huge amount of people that wanted to do that. 11 teams signed up, which was way more than I expected, and looks at building a STEM culture within your LEA or your charter. So those are the ones that we're looking at providing for next year. So hopefully that will work out. We'll see how the rest of the budget process goes. I should know within probably a month, month and a half. Okay, as far as assessments at the end of this year, the summative assessments, that's been a big question. For the RISE data, federal accountability was waived this year. So you can see through numbers 1 through 5 that will, while students will be taking the RISE test, it's really about giving the instructor information. Hang on, of course the landscape people come right now. I'm going to shut my window. The joys of doing Zoom at home. The neighbor's yard will look great. So you can see that there are certain things that, you know, assessment won't count against you, but they really do want to do assessment so that teachers can see where are students at, and be able to have that information. But it should be kind of a year where there's not a lot of accountability other than that for the assessments. So I think that's helpful. Also, this is really exciting. This year we have done a ton, like a massive amount of work on the science and STEM endorsements for elementary. They are now just about ready to go. The writing teams for the micro-credentials attached to them, which I'll explain in a minute, just turned in all of their feedback on Monday and Tuesday. So I'm just kind of putting in those revision bits. Then I'll send it over to licensing. These will be ready to start July 1st of this year. So there are links that you can click on. I'm going to exit my screen for just a minute and show you what this looks like. So for the elementary science endorsement, now the Utah State Board of Education has changed from this idea of endorsements just being college classes to endorsements being about demonstrating competency. And there needed to be multiple pathways for someone to demonstrate competency. Of course, one way will still be courses, because I think those are highly effective. Another route that the different writing teams chose were micro-credentials, which is a way for people to complete the same competencies just on their own without the support of a class, and it's sent to an approver that is selected because of their knowledge, not just any random person, but they're selected because they do have understanding of what's happening in this micro-credential. So they can say, yes, this person does understand and have these competencies, or no, they need to go back and try again or try something different. So instead of just calling them courses, they are requirement areas with competencies. So for the elementary science endorsement, there will be 6 requirement areas. For each requirement area, there's either a course or there's a stack of micro-credentials with all of the competencies that are required for the course also being required for the micro-credentials. With the micro-credentials, there's a $20 fee to apply and have them reviewed. So the application will look, when they apply for the endorsement, you'll see, okay, here's the requirement area. There's 6 of them. You can see all the competencies required. You can either take it through a course, or you can say, I took this stack of micro-credentials. And there will be transcripts for both to say, yes, we approve that or not. Also attached in the application, you can get to this, which gives you another look at the requirement area and the 2 ways to get there for each of the 6 areas. Again, the competencies are pointed out, so you can click on these links and see exactly what competencies those are attached to. Okay, the same thing for the elementary STEM endorsement. They were turned to requirement areas. Now, the difference is, and we've talked about this in the past, there are prerequisites for the new elementary STEM endorsement. You will need to either have completed a science endorsement or are taking it at the same time, but you can't be approved for the new STEM endorsement until you've been approved for the science, or an elementary math endorsement, or a combination of 6 courses between the 2. So that will be worked out on the application. It's not quite there yet. I'm still working with licensing on that. To then take 3 additional STEM courses on top. That would then give you, if you do one or the other of the science or math routes, you'll have 1 endorsement for that, and for just 3 more classes, a 2nd endorsement. So that's pretty amazing. People who currently have an elementary STEM endorsement, like me, the title of that will be changed to say elementary science STEM endorsement with an emphasis in science. And so that's what everyone who currently has it, that's what it will be changed to. If you do the new route, it will be elementary STEM endorsement. And that will start as of July 1st. There's a 2-year grace period from July 1st of 2021 to 2023 that you can finish up the old elementary STEM endorsement with an emphasis in science, or you can choose to move forward. And that'll be up to kind of our university partners. How do they want to roll? Are they wanting to finish up a cohort, or do they want to move forward? So that should let you know what those are about. One thing to note on the micro-credential pathway, while they had now all been written and revised, they can't technically be in use until 2 people have piloted them. So any of you who are dying to get an elementary science endorsement or the new elementary STEM endorsement and would like to pilot these, woohoo! You are in luck because I need you. So as soon as they can go live, as soon as we've gotten feedback from 2 people. So if you would like to be one of those lucky 2 people, please let me know. Or if you know teachers in your district, that would be great. But just so that you know, the micro-credential route will open up as soon as it can. But we have 35 micro-credentials for people to try between the science and the STEM. So it might take a little time, but they are ready to go when people want to try them. Okay, so for the informational items, just one more kind of informational item, which is a big deal. Let's go to view again. Our elementary advisory team this year has been amazing. They met monthly from August, and they will meet one more time in May to debrief about what happens here today for just an hour and a half a month online. And they helped, together we planned what you're participating in today, the SSECC meetings. And also they've consulted on the different projects for the year and the needs, like the LEA resource repository that we're going to look at the end of today came out of their council. So it's been a big deal. It's not a huge commitment, but it's a really, really critical commitment. So I'd like to especially thank Megan, Ryan, Catherine, Sandy, Michael, Danielle, Sarah, and Laura for being on this committee. They have been great and they've been active and they've been there every time. So thank you. If you'd like to continue, please fill out another application, but we'd also like for it to kind of travel around the state and bring in new people just so that we get perspectives from all around the state and from different stakeholder levels. So there is in the notes and also in this PowerPoint a link to the application. If you could do that, please fill it out. And Brittany, I see you smiling. That must mean you're going to fill it out, right? Perfect. I see Brittany Mandarino smiling, so she's going to do it, I think. All right, so that's the last one. Again, a great big thank you to our elementary advisory team this year. They have done a fabulous job. And now we'll transition after we debrief about this meeting in May to the new team starting next August. Okay, so the theme that the advisory team selected is how do we increase the amount of science instruction in every elementary grade level? So that's what our theme is for this meeting, kind of continuing from last meeting. They wanted to dig even deeper. So that's what we're going to kind of focus everything around today. First of all, we're going to start with building connections. You're going to be able to go into breakout rooms for, I don't know, probably 10 minutes. And you'll be able to, if you don't know everyone, get to know each other quickly and then really answer this question. What have your administrators, school leaders, others in your context used to encourage science instruction? And what have they done to make science instruction a priority? It's interesting, I left a webinar, a national webinar where Oki Lee, who we watched some of her information last SSECC, was providing a national webinar, and she was talking about how critical science is and how important it is even in language learning that our students are learning language better when it's within a context of science. So think about these 2 questions and then share your group's insights to the meeting notes. Let me show you what that looks like. In the meeting notes, you should have access to them. If you don't, put it in the chat and I'll change the share settings. I tried to before the meeting, but you know, sometimes things happen. Okay, so you'll be in the building connections, and for each breakout room, you'll put who the team members are and the insights to answer those 2 questions right here, okay? So we have, let's see, 23 of us. So I think I'm going to put us into 4 groups. Does that sound okay? That'll give us a few people to be able to visit with. So once I set up the groups, I'll let you know, and you will have let's take about 10 minutes. Okay, so you know what your assignment is. Please get the insights in, and I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Enjoy visiting and talking. Thank you. Hi, Laura and Sarah. We're in breakout rooms for about the next 8 minutes. So I'm going to assign you to a breakout room. right, Bridget, I am going to assign you to a room right now so that you can go join everyone with the fun. All right? I am not hearing you if you're speaking to me, my friend.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I think I'm hearing you, Bridget. Nope, no, I'm not.
I can't.
Now I am.
hear anything.
Okay, try
Now I can hear you. Should be good now, I think.
Did that work?
Hey, Melissa, can you hear me yet?
I can.
Woohoo!
Okay. Woo! Thank you, Avila. Okay, if you'll invite me to join a room again, I will actually join this time.
Well,
Sorry about that.
I think that you.
Our district cut out an hour of the day, and they're like, "How do I fit everything in?"
It is
Be like,
showing you. Oh, not joined. I'm going to just move to 4 just so that you can join.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, friends, it looks like we're all back. Thank you. People were sharing great things as I was reading your notes and visiting some of the rooms. Amazing things. Thank you. I think it's important to kind of really reflect on what we've talked about and learned and what other people have talked about and learned. So I want to just take a couple of minutes. If you will go through the notes and read what other teams said and kind of pick out something to you that's saying, oh, this is something I could try in my context, or this is something I really want to think about in my context. And then share these down at the bottom of this section, what you think from all of these ideas that you might try. So let's take 2 minutes to look through them. So your 2-minute time starts right now, and then we'll come back together at 1:40. Okay, my friends, add your ideas in. I see one in there. Thank you. This idea of monthly science forums where teachers can go over the content for different strands. Love that. That's a great idea. So if you'll take about the next 30 seconds and put down what you think you might be able to try in your context or what you want to kind of consider. Okay, thank you for taking time to do that. I heard wonderful things. We are going to move forward to the next part of our meeting, which is really the state of affairs. Now, my work computer updated last night, and it's not allowing me to play videos on my computer as of today. So, that's always a good update. It worked well. So I'm going to just switch over to my personal computer and just play there. I listened to an hour-long webinar by the Department of Education that really talks about the state of education right now. And I think it's important for us to know what is going on. And then I'll have some stats to show you what are the trends in our state so that we can see where are we doing kind of the same type of trends nationally in our state, where might we differ? Because I think that helps us decide what strategies we want to use in our context when we see those different ideas. If something happens and the video doesn't play, the link is here. We're just going to watch the first piece through 16 minutes and 9 seconds. And it goes through and gives research and statistics from a study they've done in Stanford. So I think it's going to be useful for us. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and share my other screen.
Someone's not muted.
My name is Jim Blue, and I'm an assistant secretary here at the department. Dr. Mark Schneider, who is the director of the Institute for Educational Sciences, and I decided we wanted to host this webinar because we are alarmed by what we're seeing across the country. Due to the pandemic and the school closures, the academic progress of our students has been stunted, especially for our most vulnerable children. By the way, the pandemic and school closures are also affecting the physical and mental health of our children, as well as their social and emotional development. It has been a very rough year for all of us, but it has been particularly hard for our children. We've divided today's program into 2 parts. First, Mark has a couple of experts in learning loss who will lay out what we know so far about it and its impacts. Second, I will be talking with a couple of nonprofit leaders who are developing solutions that would allow us to remediate children in the aftermath of the pandemic. We've recorded these conversations earlier, so we've been able to edit them and focus them in order to stay within our time constraints. Let me now turn to Dr. Mark Schneider.
We are faced with an unprecedented disaster. This disaster has affected families, it's affected parents, part of families, it's affected children. The loss to the economy, the loss to sanity, the loss to everyday life is just unmeasurable. Except we have 2 people here who've actually gone to extraordinary lengths to measure some of the losses that are occurring in terms of learning. We're going to see slightly different pictures of how bad this loss is, and one of the issues that we need to talk about is why the estimates from Mackie Raymond, who I'll introduce formally in a second, and Aaliyah Samuel from NWEA are somewhat different, and we need to reconcile those differences. But the most important part is, no matter even the most optimistic assessment says that this has been, the past 10 months have been a disaster for society, for schools, and for our students. We either have children in our house, or in my case, I have daughters that have young children, and the extent of the damage that my grandchildren are suffering, that the extent of the damage that my daughters are suffering is just amazing. So we're going to start with the first issue of today. We're going to talk about measuring the loss. And I think that's just the foundation. We have to understand the extent of the loss. We have to extend a measure to whom these losses are the greatest. We know that Students with special needs are affected maybe more than almost anybody else. We know that low-income students are being affected, again, disproportionately. Low-performing students or who are already losing ground, according to all our national assessments and state assessments, are probably suffering even more. So we're going to start with two presentations that are concerned with measuring the degree of the loss. And as they do so in their presentations, they're both going to start raising the issue of what we need to do to address that loss. And that is actually the most important part of our discussion. And because we know the loss, we're going to document the loss, but how do we recover from the size of this loss is the challenge that we all ultimately face. So our first speaker is Dr. Mackie Raymond from Credo. And Mackie, I turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this webinar. My team has been working since the beginning of the pandemic to try to understand what the situation has been for students and for families and educators across the United States. And my presentation today has to do with the estimates of learning loss in the last academic school year. So in the 2019-20 school year, most states closed their schools around March 15th. And that meant there was approximately 3 months of time before the end of a regular school year where students were not in their regular classrooms and were being educated via other means, primarily remote education, where it was possible to do so over digital connections, otherwise through the delivery of worksheets and home assignments. We at Credo at Stanford University are fortunate to have partnerships with 33 states across the United States, and 20 of them took time from their incredible crisis response work to understand our project and agree to sign on, and we're very grateful to those states. What we tried to do was to figure out what would have happened for those students in those states if COVID had not happened, and then based on those estimates, try to back up and figure out where students actually ended the academic year. To do this work, we were fortunate to have a partnership with Northwest Evaluation Association, NWEA, who's also on this panel today, and I'm delighted to have them with us, to estimate where students ended up at the end of the school year. What you are looking at on this slide is a graphic representation of the work that we did. We knew where students were at the end of the 2018-19 school year. And from that and other historical data, we were able to project where they would have ended up at the end of 2020, at the end of the 1920 school year, had they not been affected by COVID. That location in their achievement is represented by the number 1 in a circle. But as I mentioned, they lost a lot of classroom time. And so if you just backed off how many classroom days they lost, you end up at achievement location with the number 2. But prior work, partly by NWEA and partly by other scholars, had led us to believe that as time goes on without active engagement in learning, the body of knowledge that students have starts to decay. And so we estimated from the point known as number 2 to see how much decay students would have had by the end of the academic year in 2019-2020. And that's represented by the 3 in a circle. So in a nutshell, that's how we've tried to do our work. In order for us to produce calculations of this magnitude, we end up using statistical models that report their results in standard deviation units. But we know that most people in the world do not walk around thinking about standard deviation units. And so we decided we would try to transform those statistics into something that people would understand more easily. And we came upon the idea of using days of learning. And days of learning assume that an average student from one year to the next would learn about 180 days of learning in a 180-day school year. So the typical kid, average student learning in a year is 180 days. If a particular student doesn't learn as much, we have translated that to say it is as though the student has not gone to school for 180 days, but has gone to school for some smaller number of days, 160, 175, whatever. And if they've learned more than the average student, then we say it is as though they have gone to school for more than 180 days. And we add those additional learning days onto the 180-day base. So what you can do then is to see that learning loss will be as though students who would normally have 180 days of learning have actually lost days, and their days of learning for the 1920 school year is something lower than 180 days. And the question is, how much lower? Now, because these are statistical models, and because we are making projections, and because we are doing translations, we know that there's a lot of fuzziness in the estimates that we've come up with. And so we want to caution that these are not precise numbers. These are not things you want to bet on. You don't want to take these to the bank or put your retirement plan on these. But we do think that they are in the ballpark of what students experienced. And we think they're extremely valuable for relative comparisons across groups of students and for planning purposes, giving people a general magnitude of how students were affected. So let me present the days of learning results to you. And what you see in this slide is the reading impacts and the math impacts of learning that students experienced as a result of COVID. The average loss tells us what happened to the typical student. And you can see that the typical student got about 116 days of learning. That's about 64% of a regular school year in reading. And they lost about 119 days of 119% of a year's learning, 215 days in math. But we also saw across the states that we studied that there was variation around this. And so we also decided to present to you today what the worst case was that we saw and what was the best case that we saw. And so for reading, you can see that in some places, students lost 100%, right? 100% of their school year with 183 days of loss, where some students only lost 57 days worth of learning, which was about 71%. In math, the situation was much more dire. We had students who were losing 129% of a full year of learning, 232 days. And in the best case scenario, we saw that kids were gaining about 75% of a school year with 136 days. So our learning loss not only is big, but there's big variation around that. And that has real implications for the work that we need to think about going forward. That variation that I just described to you actually gives us an idea of what the impacts are with vulnerable populations. And so when we compared the loss in learning between high minority, high poverty schools and the most advantaged schools where there's low poverty and low minority concentrations, we found that the largest learning losses occur in the most vulnerable schools. And that's also true for schools that have high concentrations of English language learners and students with IEPs, so special education students. We found that the effects were largest where the original achievement was going to be lowest. So in other words, the students that were already going to be at the back of the pack are the ones that had the largest impact and are being moved even further back relative to the impacts for other students. What this tells us then is that the pandemic and the disruption to schooling has magnified the pre-existing achievement gaps that we already know about and that we're already concerned about. And it's just heightened those issues for us. And finally, we think it's pretty clear, but we want to make explicit that because the range of learning at the end of the year is even wider than it was before, we can't any longer assume that a one-size-fits fits all fixed pace of learning, which is essentially the model of classroom-based instruction, is going to be effective in reaching the needs of all students across the country. Our evidence is very, very disturbing and has brought a lot of calls into question about how reliable they are. I can tell you that we have compared our work with other studies, both concerning COVID in the case of the OECD study, and in terms of regular examples of absenteeism and earlier estimates of the COVID impacts that NWEA did last spring and that were published just recently this fall. We are all describing bad impacts from the loss of classroom instruction. We are all describing bad impacts from the disruption of schooling. We differ in the magnitudes, but the direction and the sign and the level of concern, I think, are consistent across all of these. So what do we make out of all of this? Our research suggests that academic remedies are going to take years, not months, and that academic rescue is only part of what students are going to be needing. We see that there are new approaches to schooling that we have to think about bringing online quickly, expanding options that already exist if we're to fully meet all student needs. And this suggests new and different ways of using teachers and other educators in the mix, and thinking about a wider set of school and school setting options, bringing different models to the table so that individual students' needs can be addressed and successfully bring students forward. Third, there has never been a greater need for assessing what students know. I understand and appreciate the challenges that implementing student assessments pose for schools and for states, but we have to have some sense of where students are so that we can use that information to effectively plan for meeting every single student's needs. And in that vein, it's very clear to us that there are communities that are going to need extraordinary measures of help and assistance to move forward. This is a challenge for everyone, and as much as we understand and applaud and appreciate the efforts that have been done to date, we also think that this is a long haul proposition and that many communities could significantly benefit from.
Hi, friends. Can you hear me again? Oh, good. So my thought in sharing that with you wasn't to depress you, but I do think we have to be real. Where are we at? Because we can't really move forward if we don't know where we're at. So I want to just show you what we're seeing in our state in the trends. We don't have a lot of data because there wasn't a lot of testing last year, but just kind of share what data we do have to see where does that match up, where does that maybe not match up, because I think there are places for both. And really think about, for Utah, for us, what student populations are really our vulnerable populations, because I think we need to consider how are we going to really support them. So what we do have are is the Acadians data from middle of the year from 2019, 20, and 21. So that's what we're seeing here. And you're seeing for each of the different grades. And the green is for our COVID year. So you're seeing that where students who were at or above benchmark did drop in all of these areas, in all these grade levels, however, less severe in second and third grade. So I think that's interesting, more severe in kindergarten or first grade. So let's look at what does that mean for different populations. 0 means they are at benchmark for that assessment at middle of year. So these are bars going down showing, who was below benchmark. And I think we're kind of seeing here, while the state overall was down in proficiency, low income is pretty low across the board. Now, interestingly enough, look at our special education. If we compare that to the rest of the state across the board, they did better than even our regular ed. The other thing that's pretty concerning is look at our English learners. And across the board, it looks like there are issues with English learners. Just another way to look at it to see, is this really saying what we think it's saying? So students who made typical or better progress from the beginning of the year for each of those years to that middle of year assessment, here's the percentage. And again, we can see, especially kindergarten was pretty adversely affected in reading. And I was kind of surprised, while there were adverse effects in reading in first, second, and third grade, less so than in kindergarten. And again, we're seeing here would be the kind of the benchmark, and now where are the issues? And again, we're seeing this issue of lower income, so lower socioeconomic, and our English learners were pretty highly impacted populations last year. So I'd like to kind of bring it back to us and spend just a few minutes. You can either type in the chat or unmute and share, because there aren't a ton of us, so we can, it's kind of nice, we can share with each other. So what does that mean for us with science? If that's what happened with reading, and it looks like math, there were probably even greater learning losses, but so what does that mean for science? And especially where we started new standards last year, what are the insights? What are the implications of this for us in science?
Melissa, I think one of the things that even before dismissal, even before COVID, one of the things that we were focused on was preparing our students for this new way of doing science. And it was no longer about memorizing the water cycle and being able to put the labels on the worksheet. It wasn't that anymore. And one of the things we knew we were going to have to tackle was having, academic language and being able to read a passage and think critically about what they were asking and then design a solution. So that connection between literacy and science is so great now. When I look at reading loss, to me, that's a direct connection to how can I effectively assess science with students who can't read on grade level. That's just one of the things that I thought of as you were sharing the Acadians data, but there's myriad other impacts on science.
I think that's a really important kind of insight and implication, Shauna, because what I'm seeing in all the national meetings that I'm going to is people are saying, we've got to start making the connection between literacy and science. They need that science to actually have something meaningful to do. And as we're doing that, we can also kind of integrate the two together. And it seems like that might be something that we could look for as one of these strategies for the future. So that's really popping up in the national conversations. Anything else that anyone wants to share?
I do have one concern. Anytime you start these new standards, you're going to, they're going to drop. We saw that with sixth grade coming in, that there was that big drop of like, oh, this is what you mean. This is what that's going to show. Or as we change in the rigor and the content and the, just even the approach with three-dimensional. But what we're also going to deal with is that deficit on top of that. I'm just worried that teachers are going to be more demoralized than they really need to be, because it's like a heap on a heap, if that makes sense. And so that's one thing I've just really tried to let teachers know that if there was a year for us to set the benchmark low, this is the year. And to not hold it personal and know that we're dealing with more than just the new standards. And so giving some perspective to teachers, I think, is really important.
Oh, I think you're very accurate. We need to help people realize this has been a tough year, not just for Utah, but the whole nation. And in fact, some places Utah is faring a little better than maybe the rest of the nation, which says teachers are doing great things. But how maybe focus in on these most adversely affected populations in thinking about how we're moving forward. I think helping them will help everyone. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I do think this is where our jobs come into play. What resources can we provide teachers to give them hope and to say, look, here's something, let's try it. So I think that's why our jobs are so important. See, Ryan says, it seems like a lot of the assumptions that normally work about kids, about what they know and can do, won't necessarily work this next year. I think that is important to consider. We're all in a very different situation, and now we have students all over the place. So yeah, I think you're right, Ryan. So I mean, I think we have to be real about this, and we want to know, okay, this is where we're at. Now let's build up. How can we go up? How can we increase time in science? How can we support our vulnerable populations as well as everyone in the process? So that's where the exciting part comes. So don't leave now because you're kind of at a low. We're going to build up high now. So we're going to look at three-dimensional science instruction resources share. Very good resources that will help you think about what would work for me in my context. Again, we're thinking about how do we increase the amount of science time in elementary, because I think in a lot of cases, science instruction just plain didn't happen. And that's going to be a big problem further down the road. Somehow we need to figure out how can we support science education and how can we support our most vulnerable populations. So we have breakouts, and the elementary advisory team went through and suggested these resources and vetted them. So you're going to have a chance to select the breakout room you want to find the information that you want to learn about. In the notes, you will see that I've put a description for each one of these resources to better help you make a decision as to where you might want to go, what you think is useful to you in your context. I'll open up the breakout rooms and you can self-select where you want to go. We will be in them until 2:30. At 2:30, we'll come back together, but by that point, here are the instructions for when you're in the breakout rooms. And there is a facilitator in the room. Sorry, facilitators, I can only make 2 people co-hosts, so you might not be able to share your screen. I'm unsure, but everyone should have links to all the documents. So within the Zoom breakout groups, you're going to kind of read and summarize the information in that resource with the idea of how can it help us increase time? How can it help us support our vulnerable populations? Then look at ways you could use this in your context, or that you see someone could use these ideas in their context, and add it to the Google Slides. So if you'll notice the next Google Slides, so here's for the first breakout room. There's a summary, ideas for, increasing time or supporting vulnerable populations. For the second breakout room, here they are. So you should see for all of the breakout rooms, there's a slide. By 2:30, you need to have that filled out with your breakout room group. All right. So any questions before I open up the rooms and you can self-select? And it might take you a minute or two to get into a room if you want to kind of look at the descriptions of a couple of them. But any questions that you may have? We good? Hang on, I'm going to recreate. We need 5. There are 5 groups, right? I remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. Okay, so 5 rooms. And I'm going to let you choose your room. I'll stay in here for a minute. I'll be heading to the WIDA room to help in that room, but I'll stay here for a minute. If you can't figure out how to get yourself into a room, just stay and tell me where you want to go and I'll move you, okay? So not to worry, it'll be okay. Anyone who joins during this time, I don't know, they're on their own floundering in the main waiting room, but that's their problem. All right, friends, so I'm going to start the rooms right now and you can select which one you want. We'll come back at 2:30 with our Google slide filled out.
Hey, Melissa, it's Candace.
Hi, Candace.
How are you?
I'm good.
I was trying to get to room 5 and I don't know what happened, but I don't have options anymore.
That's weird. I'll move you.
Thank you.
Okay. Carrie and Annette and Laura, would you like me to move you to a room?
Yes, I don't see the options. Can you move me to the district one, district implementation, please?
Yes, I would be happy to. That is room 4. So I'm going to move you there right now.
Great, thank you.
By the way, have I told you guys how much I love you guys lately? You are awesome. Thank you for being so amazing. Our students are so lucky to have you, or our teachers, or whatever context you're in. You're awesome. I'm reading through these things going, I just love these guys. They're amazing. So thank you for digging into these different resources. Remember, our focus was really on thinking about how can we support instruction of science in elementary by increasing the time maybe somehow, or by supporting our vulnerable populations. We had our 5 different breakout rooms, which we can see starting from slide 25. People have written a summary of what that is and what then the ideas to answer those 2 questions might be. Oh, you guys are awesome. What we're going to do now is, I think it's important for us to see what's in there. We have busy lives. We don't have time after this. So we're going to take time right now to kind of look through these slides. So this is kind of your jigsaw now. You can look through the other slides. And the idea is to take a gallery walk through them, kind of see which one you really resonate with, and then think about what's an elevator speech, just 3 main points that I could give someone to say, oh, this would help us increase science time, or this would help us support our vulnerable populations. So you're going to write just, like an elevator speech, 3 quick points. They can be bullets. We're not looking for anything fancy, just this resource has resonated with me, and this is the reasons why this is what it would help us do. From that, if you would, you can see that there's a link to Padlet. Isn't it a lovely background? I like the background I picked. It looks very professional. So you should be able to see in the bottom corner where you just click on it, write your little points. Maybe this is a resource. These are my points. You won't have a lot of space, and then you can post it, okay? So we're going to take 7 minutes to do this. So your job in that 7 minutes, this is an individual reflection. What do I need from my context? Read the slides, find what resonates with you, and think, these are the ideas that I can pull out of that I could use in my context, that I could share with someone, okay? Put it on the Padlet. All right, you have 7 minutes, so it's 2:34. So we'll look at the Padlet at 2:41. All right, my friends, this is your time to reflect and see what it means for you. Okay, let's take about 2 more minutes. If you finish writing your Padlet idea, your little elevator speech, go through and read others. You can like them if you're like, oh yeah, I would use this too. So we have great ideas. I love looking at other people's ideas. Okay, about 60 more seconds. All right, my friends, thank you for your hard work on this. I think we got a lot of great ideas out of these resources. And hey, we didn't all have to read every one of them, but now you know where you can go for more depth if there's something you're interested in. I will capture these ideas from the Padlet and put them in the meeting notes when I send them out after our meeting, all right? So you'll have everyone's ideas. We have just one more. Oh, one other thing. If you're liking this idea of language and content and how we can integrate them together, come tomorrow to the combined SSECC, because I'm going to be doing, sharing a resource about how we support science discourse from the teacher and from the student side during classroom. And while we're looking at it based in science, it could be used in any subject. So how do we support student discourse from the teacher side and the student side? And so it's a really fabulous, easy to use resource. So don't miss Combined SSECC tomorrow. Our last resource that we're going to look at today is one that the LEAs have put together, So You. At the beginning of the year, the first SSECC, when you filled out the needs assessment that our elementary advisory committee put together, one of the big things was we don't want to reinvent every wheel. Probably people in our state have done this, but we don't know about it. We don't have time to go searching for it. Can it all be put in one place? So because of that work, the USBE said, yes, you can compile them. So there is now a resource compiled that has what you shared with me. So you should be able to see it and get to it from our slides. Let me explain quickly what it looks like, what it is and what it isn't. So it's a place for LEA created resources, not teacher resources, but these are resources that are created on a higher level. So by science specialists or by someone who's over science for a school, if you're at a charter school. So it's not, we're not looking for teacher lesson plans. We're looking for the little bit higher of who's kind of a science leader that have created these. And it came about from the needs survey that we sent out at our first SSECC this year. And since then, people have been sending me the resources. I don't vet them. That's your job because they're coming from you and not teachers, right? what my job is to curate them. So they've been curated. I put them into different categories. So there's instructional plans, ones that are student facing. So these are ones that you could just give to students and they could do on their own, or instructional plans that are teacher facing. So they would need a teacher to really, do that instruction. And so I've tried to put them in the grade spans that are appropriate. Here's the link, just a short description of what you'll find there and who to contact if you have more information, because these are the ones who submitted them, all right? There's also a section on guides or supporting resources. You'll see a couple of the state things there, like our Canvas courses, the core guides, the OER texts are here. So this is a nice place where everything's together and you can link to it. You'll see what other resources that will support teachers. There's also professional learning. So, you want to do some PD and this is kind of what you're thinking, this certain topic. Here's where you could go to say, what have people already done that they've been willing to share? And then you can look at it and say, oh, 1 hour PDs for teachers. Ooh, that's exactly what I need. I'm going to look at this resource and I might even email Sarah to say, can you tell me more about this? And you can see there are a lot of them. So we have lots of great resources. Also competency levels, descriptors, and then other that were important that maybe didn't fit into one of those categories, but I wanted them to be pointed out specifically because I felt like they were important. So we are going to take, let's do, it's 2:46. Let's go to till 2:53. So 7 minutes. Look through, select one that you're like, oh, I want to look at this one. And this will give you a chance because like I say, we lead busy lives. We don't have a ton of time. So this is your chance. You have 7 minutes to look at one of these that might work for you. And then we'll come back together and kind of say, these are the things that we found. So take this 7 minutes till 54 now. So 2:54 on my clock, and then we'll come back together to close. All right, my friends? So let me know if you have any questions because I'll be here. You can put it in the chat if you want. My friends, if you're finding something that you're like, oh, I really like this, will you put it in our meeting notes for today? Under this section, there's a spot that says district resources share. This is the resource. This is how I think would be useful. If you have a minute to do that, that would be great if you found something you really like. So let's take about 3 more minutes. A 2-minute warning. Okay, let's take about 60 seconds. Thank you, those that are putting their ideas in the notes. For those who couldn't attend, they can go, oh, that would be a good resource. Okay, my friends, I know that wasn't a ton of time, but hopefully that gave you a little time to kind of dig in and start seeing some things that looked to be of interest to you. And you're like, oh, now I know all these resources are in one spot, so I don't have to try to find them elsewhere. I know right where to look for what I'm wanting and who to contact if I have questions. So just kind of in closing, my message to you is you're wonderful. Thank you. This has been a really challenging year, but you guys have been amazing, and it's been, you know, amazing because of your hard efforts and your dedication. So thank you. I really appreciate you. And I wanted to introduce you to my new coworker. This is Daisy. So Daisy spends the days with me. She was, when I got her, she was 1.6 pounds, and now she's a whopping 3.1 pounds. But so this is Daisy, and I got bored being at home alone with no one to talk to. So now I talk to Daisy. And she is great. She listens. She even talks back a lot. But I appreciate you. Thank you for all you do. Does anyone have any questions before we close? Please come tomorrow. We have great things planned about how to use your ESSER 2 funds and CARES Act funds. And again, how to do, this resources for teacher and student discourse moves. So please come tomorrow if you can, because I think it's going to be information. I just think you're amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please email me with any insights or questions you have. And thank you, facilitators of the breakout rooms. I appreciate you. And everyone, thank you for your hard work. Everyone take your hand. You should know this by now. Put it on your back and say, great job. See, Daisy can do it, kind of. I hope you have a great day. Let me know how I can help you. I'm excited for what will happen next year. Thanks, everyone. You just got 4 minutes of your life back. Woohoo! Have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow.
Melissa, we've never had the room clear out that fast ever.
Well, that tells you it must have been a bad meeting.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I just was shocked. I was like, da, da, da. There's all like.
They were
That
gone,
was
man, like a vapor trail.
That was crazy fast. That was insane. Okay. No, really, it was a good meeting. It was good. It was really good.
Hopefully it was useful. There were things that people could use.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
need new clothes.
You're gonna need new clothes? Is that what you said?
Because she decided she likes to eat them.
Oh, she is. Yeah, you're right. Uh-huh.
Easy. Be a good girl.
Oh, she's cute. Hi, Daisy. Huh. Oh, yeah. Like, she's like, wait, I want the collar.
She was
So,
like my mommy. She was with the doggy sitter for the last 2 hours, but I went and got her.
So the refining of the micro-credentials, like the SSE, I know we wanted to get them vetted, but are we showing them in the next one? Or is it, does that make sense?
I thought about that, and then I decided it might be just TMI at this moment. That maybe it's more useful for them to get the overarching idea of there's classes or there's micro credentials. You can go and see the competencies. They all rotate around the competencies. So as I went to put that in, I was like, I think that might be overload as much as I wanted to.
Well, I felt it was plenty full. So I was like, there's no way she had that on top of everything. This was like well-paced, full enough. So I was like, oh, maybe it's tomorrow. So no, not at all.
No, I decided to not. And I decided that if anyone asks me, I'm going to say the competencies were written by teams that have all these stakeholders. Then the micro credentials were written for those competencies. Then the teams went in and revised them. And now we're going to have 2 people try each one and give feedback. So that was what I decided to do.
So that was my next question. So I've got Dave Horan. Oh, you can answer it. You can.
No, it's Candace. I'll call her back later.
Okay. I've got Dave Horan, Havilah Jones. Remember they were in our STEM stuff? Brittany, whatever. If you wanted us, and even like Sarah McAfee emailed me during the meeting, was like, I'll pilot. Like, so if you wanted us to even do a little bit of a cohort of like,
oh, I love that idea.
Micro credentials where we could be like, how's this playing out? Where are you seeing this? Are you doing a lot of paper writing? Is there more things you need to do in classrooms? Anyways, we got a group that would be willing to work through stuff. So
Love that idea of a cohort, and I wouldn't have thought of that. I think that's brilliant. And then you can kind of walk through them together and give feedback. I think that is fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Would love that.
cool.
So I will, I'll just talk to Nate, my supervisor, and get permission to do that. I think that's way more brilliant than just getting feedback from, the group. I like this way better. And then as soon as you guys have finished one, I can revise it based on the feedback and we'll open it up for the public. So
I like it.
a great idea. Thank you. Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay.
That's
You're
why
amazing. It was awesome.
I'm close to you, because you're brilliant.
Huh?
That's why I stay so close to you like glue, because you're brilliant.
Whatever. Why do you think I'm like, no, I will anything.
I'm like
Melissa,
Velcro on you.
Well, it's funny because you were listing all the stuff for next year, and I was like, hey, we need to do all of this. Okay, wait, who's signing up for this? Who did this? And I was like assigning people. I was like, Bridget, do you want to be on the advisory committee this year? Go ahead and do the application right now. And like, I was like, okay, this looks good. So
I think they're going to be good ones. Nate said, can you really do all that? I said, well, I have great people, so I think we'll be fine. Because I think I can't really narrow it down.
I know. Why do people ask us that? I get asked that question all the time. Can you really do all that? I'm like, why would I say come on. Like I would.
If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it. I promise.
So hopefully they'll get their money approved, but I'm going to do some of them online. Like I still thought, let's do the Doing and Talking Science online so that rural districts could participate. And the STEM Institute will do online so that rural districts can participate, but the core guides and the OER will do together in person so that we can really talk and get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, and it's what's needed. I think that's smart. So
anyway, I'm excited for next year, and thank you. I love your cohort idea. I am running with that to Nate tomorrow. So
sweet. Okay, you're the best.
You're amazing.
See you soon. I will actually leave now. Sorry.
No. See you.
Hey, Melissa.
Hey, sorry, I had people stay in the room, so I was answering questions.
No, you're fine. You did a great job. But as fate would have it, I had the box elder lady with me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And when she told me her strategy was to tell her K2 teachers not to teach any science this year. I came unglued.
Oh, good, because I did.
I just said that's not acceptable. I said we're perpetuating inequities in science, and I went off about it. And I said, again, my name's Candace Penlow, and I'm from Salt Lake City School District. Look me up, you got a problem. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I told you I spent 45 minutes with her.
I couldn't believe it.
However, Candace, I think she's starting to come around because she's attending this meeting, one, and two, she has box elder people signed up for every grade level K through 6 for the developing formative assessments.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's good.
While I don't think they're going to be a great contributor, I put them in.
Yeah. Well, they needed to come so they can get with the program and see what's really happening in science.
Exactly. So I think there's like one wasted spot on every team, but I was willing to go there.
No, I agree, because I think sometimes it helps when they see, oh wow, what have we not been doing? It's just really unnerving to me. So seriously, we need to do something, because this is so ridiculous. Here's what we need to get into. We need to get into the Principals Association thing.
Yeah.
You know how they have a meeting? That's what we need to get into, and we need to deliver a message based on research about elementary science and why because that's really the problem.
I agree.
It's really a teaching problem.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why why I included some of the district resources in our share and why I had you do the elevator speech. What could you take and share?
Oh, yeah, it was great.
And the NSTA
Great.
position paper, I was like, okay, these
Yeah.
give you some ammunition, because at the state office, they get really funny about us talking to
Yeah.
principals.
Yeah. But maybe I'll do it then. I don't care. I mean, I'm just saying something needs to be done. And I think one thing I'm going to do in my district, so I did a survey on elementary science. I was really trying to see how many people wanted FOSS as opposed to mystery science. But anyway, one of the questions I asked is, what would help? And a lot of people wrote in integrating. So I'm going to try to do an integrating project this year with lower elementary and see where we got. I don't know. But
I
see if
love
we can
that.
Figure out. Yeah.
Love that. You know who would be good is Bev Sanders is doing a lot of that right now.
Where is she?
Cash.
Oh, in Cache County?
She's their science and math director, and she's going to be over the kindergarten team for the developing formative assessments. But
Cool.
and you should see, she's got in the LEA resource share. I haven't, like I say, my job wasn't to vet these, but she had teams write integrated language arts and science curriculum for first and second grade, I think.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna look at that.
So look at that with Bev Sanders. So she would be a good person. I love writing integrated curriculum too, but.
Okay, now it's exciting. I love it too. Now that's what I did in middle school. Okay, I have another question about your STEM academies that are coming up.
Yes.
If I want to make a STEM school in my district, so I should send, like, if I have a school that I want to be a STEM school, send them to that academy that would help them.
Okay, so I'll tell you, it's a big deal. I've worked with the person that's over principals and the person that's over the high quality instruction and teaching and learning, and they're going to run a section in this for coaches and for principals, and there'll be a consulting coach that will be someone who's done this in the past that will work with that school principal.
Oh, cool.
And so from what will happen is within the school, the principal needs to attend a coach, some kind of an instructional coach of some sort, and then at least one teacher, but they can have up to 3 teachers.
Wow.
Need to attend. And then we'll start by writing a vision for a STEM culture in their community. And then we'll look at how you set goals to accomplish that vision. And we'll have breakout days on science, math, engineering, and technology. And what does effective instruction look like? What are the components of it? Then we'll go back and revise those goals so that those are in it. And that's just the first year. By the end of the first year, they'll have an action plan for this is how we can change our whole culture in our school.
Wow.
And between every session, so there's a session every month, between every session, they have to take their vision and their goals back to the school and get stakeholder feedback to bring back the next month.
Oh, that's
so then year 2, which will be the year after that, the consulting coaches come in and work with the principals and the coaches as they implement it and help them brainstorm challenges and barriers that they come upon.
Wow.
So it's intensive, but the whole idea is to change a culture.
Well, see, so with the STEM ecosystem, I went to a webinar yesterday. There's a new NSF grant out that is it's focused on racial inequities.
Oh, cool.
And on deconstructing systems and intentionally rebuilding a new and different way. And so my idea is to build a STEM school that is based on those principles. So, where the teachers that work there are teachers of color. I mean, that's part of the problem that we have in STEM. Anyway, so I've just been thinking for the last 24 hours about this whole thing. And then I saw that and I was like, I bet that could really help the school, you know, move that way. And I like the gradualness of it too. That's so important.
It's really thought out, planned, feedback from every level, so that when it's go time, everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, that's good. I love the way you think. You're such a good systems thinker, and that's what I like.
Well, I'm hoping it will work, but like I say, I've involved the person who's over principals and the person who's over PD for the state for high quality instruction. And they're going to work directly with the principals and the coaches as one of the breakout groups within this too. So there'll be parts of time where we're all together. There'll be parts of time where they're with their school teams. And there's parts of times when they're with job alike people getting increased understanding and skill building.
Yeah, that's so good.
So I mean, it's 5 full days, but that's a lot even to fit into 5 days.
No kidding. Wow, that's I'm so proud of you.
Well, we'll see how it goes, but trying to move things forward.
Oh my goodness. I'm trying. List of all this. Now, do you know so I'm supposed to do Fuel Your School this summer, and Sarah said we're planning on going to Richfield. Has the state office said it's okay to travel?
Yes.
Do you know? They have? Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. So we're planning on going to Richfield.
Yeah, as of July 1st, they've taken off travel restrictions.
Wow.
So there's we don't have to apply for exemptions, nothing. As of July 1st, it's just normal travel.
Back to normal. And can you do PD with people?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it still going to be virtual?
Well,
we don't know yet.
They're saying they haven't set restrictions on it, but they're not saying they won't.
Yeah. I think people are kind of wait and see.
Yeah. That's what it feels like to me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. Well, thanks for all your great work, honestly.
Well, thank you for being here today. I hope it was a useful meeting. And
yeah, it was really great. And it was great. Like I reconnected with Brian Kane. I haven't talked to him for a while.
I like him. He's a good guy.
He said Jennifer Kloskins is retiring. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, sure.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I just asked him, oh, so what is Jennifer? You know what I mean? I was like, you're in elementary. What does Jennifer do? Oh, she teaches a science class. I'm like, oh, okay. He said, I think she's retiring. I'm like, oh, okay.
Fabulous.
So, yeah. Who knows? All right, now to finish my paper that I wish I had finished, but I seriously have not had any time.
Hey, I finished my paper for Kim's class and submitted it last night.
Yay!
And then I have a 65-page paper for my other class that I have revised through page 23 as of this morning. So I've got to finish the rest of it.
Yeah, well, I got to go finish my, just, you know how it is. Some of these weeks you just cannot get, it's like trying to get traction.
There's just so much going on. Oh.
Yeah, no, are you going to do research on disciplinary literacy?
That is my dissertation, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know what to do. Like there's a lot out there, you know?
There is a lot out there. And that's the whole, I mean, Kip Moore is really good about saying, don't feel like you have to know exactly what you're doing your first year. Give it some time to check out different things and let it percolate, and then start your second year thinking about where do I kind of want to head. So I don't, I don't see a problem.
Don't we have to turn in like a committee form of who we want on our dissertation committee?
Yeah, but not till, I don't think that's till your second year.
Okay, I think I have to turn it in. Kim told me this summer, and I'm getting all stressed out because I'm like, I don't know. There's so many interesting things, and I haven't really landed on, that's what I want to do.
I don't think I turned mine in until like September.
Okay. Well, I really like the metacognitive piece, like the thinking piece of science, you know? So I figure I'll probably do something around that. But then I look at this thing today with elementary, and I just feel like, what can I do to help?
Well, and I like this idea with the metacognition of the sense making.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I think so too. And then even bringing in how students, different to, like minority students or students that are not Western thinkers, what are their structures?
Yeah,
So anyway.
I agree. I think there's lots of cool stuff you could do, but I wouldn't stress out too much. I think just work on getting it in at the end of the summer sometime.
Okay.
More like September 1st.
Okay. Well, good luck with your 65 pages, and
Good luck with finishing your paper. I loved your research.
Yeah.
You did a great job on
did
it.
you like it?
Mhm.
Thank you. It's interesting to see what people do.
It is
Yeah.
very
It's really
interesting.
I really liked April's.
Hers was great.
She's a very deep thinker. Can you tell?
Yeah, she does a great job.
Yeah, she had a really good, and she's also had all the program too. So it shows you, it's like, okay,
Yeah, it's good once you've been, through. So I just have 5 classes left.
Woohoo! I'm so proud of you.
I've learned so much. I started looking at my dissertation proposal. That's what I'm doing for this project for the other class. And there's stuff from about every class I've taken in the program in there.
That's
So-
amazing.
So,
That's amazing.
I mean,
That's
I've
good
kept
stuff. Just kidding.
I've kept different piles of the things, the articles from the different classes with
Uh-huh.
just with sticky notes on the different ideas.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I used pretty much every pile to write that. So, I mean, the courses are good. They have good things in them. So
Yeah, I've enjoyed them. I really like Dr. Jones' course this year.
I thought hers was fabulous.
She's really good at how she teaches it. And
Yeah.
the only thing, okay, I'll tell you what, and I did complain about this. There's that little group, there's that little group of students, John, what's his name? There's a few of them, remember they were at Canisia's class,
Uh-huh.
and they like have all these little inside jokes. And
Yeah.
they put stuff in the chat. It's like,
It's irritating.
It's so irritating. So when she sent out, Dr. Jones sent out, what can we do? In the class, I put that. I said, it marginalizes. And who never speaks in that class is Katie.
Yeah,
Katie never says anything in that class. And
Huh.
to me, that's a problem.
I agree.
She never offers a comment.
Yeah, I agree.
And most
That's
of the
a
time
problem.
doesn't have a camera on. And it's interesting because I feel like, she must feel very safe in our classes,
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, and I think it's part of that because they have, I don't know, it's like that. You guys, come on, knock it off. It's all the young yahoos, and you and I are like later.
We're like, come on, grow up. We got past junior high a long time ago.
I know, isn't that the truth?
Yep.
Oh, so funny.
I get so tired of the junior high antics. It's like, really?
No, that's what they do in this class.
Ugh.
Stupid. They had some joke about, I can't remember what it was last time, and everything had a lens of this, and then they like that girl Kaylee.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
like a ringleader.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they, but I was so fortunate this time. I hardly had any of them in my groups, and I don't know how that happened, but I was so grateful.
Oh, good. Because I agree, she's irritating.
Yeah. Some of it, you're just like, you guys, come on, let's just stop this, okay?
I am so with you on that.
Anyway, well, you enjoy Daisy.